Hi. So today is Monday, July 23rd, and the last time I recorded was a couple of days before my birthday, which was June 20th, so it's been a good month since I last recorded, and it has been a very busy month with not a whole lot of knitting, so this is going to be more of a chatty podcast, I think. I do have a couple of knitted things to share, but yeah, it's going to be a little bit less knitting and a little bit more of a check-in, I guess you could say. Though I do have quite a bit of natural dyeing stuff to talk about. So you have been forewarned in case that's not really what you're into. So yeah, for my birthday, my husband and my daughter took me to Cannon Beach, and he wanted me to be able to just knit while he and Ella built a sandcastle. So that was really sweet of him, and that's what I did. Though Ella and I did some walking up to the beach and dipped our toes in the water too. But yeah, that was the perfect way to spend my birthday this year. I just wanted to be with my family and to go do something low-key. So that was really fun. And Cannon Beach is about an hour and a half away, so it's one of the closer locations on the Oregon coast to where I live. So kind of perfect for a day trip. And it's probably the beach location that has the most Portland vibe to it. It's always got tons of people there, lots of good restaurants, cute shops. There were tons of people on the beach because it was the week or the second week after school was let out, so there were a lot of families out there celebrating the fact that it was summer break finally. So then a few days after that, my husband decided to take some time off of work to work on our kitchen. We've been wanting to do a kitchen renovation ever since we moved into this house, which was I think 7 years ago. And we've been kind of chopping away at it bit by bit. We got rid of the old flooring. There was a tile layer, and then under that were a couple layers of vinyl. And we wanted to expose all of the original fir boards in the house on the first floor. So now that pretty much runs through the entire first floor, including the kitchen. It looks a lot better. Though I wish we hadn't stained it the color we stained it. We went for Jacobian, which is really dark and it shows every scratch. So if I could redo that, I would. But what we really wanted to get to this summer was the countertops, because they were particle board covered in laminate. They looked awful. Parts of them were peeling, and someone had obviously put down something hot and scorched the surface at one point. Also, we have wood cabinets, but I'm not even sure what kind of wood they are. But they had that kind of golden stain to them, and I'm not really fond of that. And also, we have a very small east-facing window in our kitchen, so we don't get a whole lot of sunlight. And so I wanted wood countertops. I've always wanted wood countertops with white cupboards and black hardware. And I was a little bit opposed to doing a white kitchen, like for the paint color, just because I feel like that's what everyone expected me to do. But our kitchen really needed something to brighten it up, so we just went ahead and did it anyway. And my husband actually built the counter himself out of just fur. He took it to his parents' house, all the wood, and he cut everything out and glued it all together. And over the course of a few days, did the staining and covered it in polyurethane. And sort of in between all that time, he was working on the cabinets. He sanded them down and painted them with a roller. It didn't seem like it was as hard or as complicated as people had made it out to be. I think as long as you sand everything and you take your time and use the right tools, it's definitely doable to paint cupboards yourself. It really seemed like it was smooth sailing as far as this project goes. I feel like we do a lot of DIY projects here at this house, and I feel like almost every time there's something that we didn't think about that always sets us back a couple of days. But in this case, it didn't really happen. So he still had a couple of days off of work, and I was like, want to do some tile backsplash? Luckily, he was up for it. And I think it looks fantastic in there now. I'm really excited to cook and to just do all my kitchen things now. And we got some new light fixtures and stuff. So yeah, that was all of June. It was very exciting. And the rest of the month since I've seen you last has just been full of social stuff, family stuff. We are really busy. And, you know, it's summer. And we've been outside a lot, and we've been in the garden a lot, and just doing lots of summery things. So I wish that I could knit sweaters and shawls right now, but once it hit about 90 here, I had to put them down and go back to socks, which made me feel like a little bit of a failure. But I think as I begin to acclimate to the hotter weather, I can start to pick up those really warm projects again, I hope. Fingers crossed. So yeah, I don't really have any finished objects this week, but I do have a couple of new works in progress. My first work in progress is the project that I am working on a little bit here while I am talking to you, which I don't normally knit while I talk on the podcast because I normally have projects that require a little bit more thought, I guess, but it's kind of nice to have something that I can work on while chatting away. This was kind of a whim cast on. It's just a sock and garter stitch, and I'm using my vanilla sock recipe, which I will put in my Ravelry group because I feel like I talk about my vanilla sock recipe every single time I record a podcast. So if you want to know what it is, then just look at my project page on Ravelry and you'll find it. But I'm doing the garter stitch version, and I'm using a yarn that's an 80/20. It was processed in the United States. And I was just really curious about how this base would hold up. I've never used an 80/20 sock yarn before. And I think I'm going to try doing a garter sock on another base at some point too. just to kind of compare, but so far this sock seems like it's going to fit me better than any other sock ever. And I think that's just because garter is squishy and flexible. So the heel is perfect. It's a heel flap and gusset heel in garter, which I've never done. And I know I'm not the only person that's ever done a garter sock. I mean, that would be ridiculous. But I've never seen one, and so I just was very, very curious about it. I was a little bit worried that the fabric would be a little bit too rough, but that's why I'm doing it, just to experiment. The only thing that I would do differently is adjust the seam so it's not running down the side like this, because it's running down the side here, and then you can see it's on the side of the foot here as well. I would adjust it so it's in the back and so that the bottom of the seam runs down the bottom of my foot. But other than that, it's just kind of a nice sock project to have when I don't want to think about anything, and when I can't knit with anything else because it's too hot. So I eventually have plans to knit all the beautiful sock patterns that I've been wanting to knit. Unless I'm in the zone with knitting, I kind of just go for really simple projects. And I always like to have one brainless sock pattern on the needles for that. So I think it's time for me to cast on for another more complicated sock pattern. And I have about 3 or 4 that I've been dying to cast on. So that will happen soon. But for now, this is kind of my portable project that I'm working on. And then, so there's that end of the spectrum with knitting. Then there's this end of the spectrum with knitting. So while I was in Cannon Beach, I peeked into Coastal Yarns, which is the yarn shop there. And the minute I opened the door, I ran into Plutolopi. And I was completely floored because I've never seen it there and I wasn't expecting to see it there. Originally, I was planning on knitting the Aito Shawl, which used to be called the Shibui Shawl by Melody Hoffman. I was planning on making that in the fall, or probably even the winter. And I was gonna do a blue gradient, but they didn't have enough shades of blue to make that happen. So I went with a monochrome. Unfortunately, I didn't bother to look at the pattern. I didn't really have very good internet reception while I was in the shop. So instead of getting 6 different colors, I only got 5. So I've had to kind of tweak the pattern a little bit and the way the colors come and go to accommodate for that, which I'll show you. I've actually gotten quite a bit of this done. And I was able to do that before the weather started getting really, really hot. So I am on the 1, 2, 3. I'm on the 4th color now. And you can see for the first section, I just went with the straight dark color. And then because I didn't have, I would say the jump from the darkest color to the next color is the biggest color jump between these two. So I decided I was going to do a section that was kind of done with both of these colors to try to make that shift a little bit more gradual. So the second section, you can see I really start to blend those two together, and then it fades into the third section. If I could redo this over again, just using the 5 colors, I think I would have tried to take a sketch of the shawl first, just so I could kind of plot out the color changes a little bit more thoughtfully. but I think that it's really beautiful anyway. The fading from the darkest color to the lighter colors is pretty abrupt, and I would have liked for that to have been a little bit more gradual, but I'm still pretty happy with it. And at this point it's already like shawl sized and I still have a couple more sections to go. So this is going to be absolutely massive, which I'm really excited about. Man, I gotta tell you, working with Plutalope is something else. Let me show you on one of the... I mean, I know a lot of you have worked with this before, but for those of you who haven't, it comes apart like nothing. Which is great for spit splicing because that's what you do to create the effect, the color effects that you get with this. But it took a lot of retries for me to get my tension right, because what was happening was I was knitting, and as I was sort of tensioning my yarn, I would pull to, because the way I tension my yarn is I go like kind of like it's crocheting, because I learned how to crochet before I learned how to knit. So I tension my yarn like this. So there's a lot of fingers for the yarn to go through as it's slipping through, and that pulls the yarn too much, so that by the time it gets to the knitted fabric, it's too thin. So I had to learn how to tension my yarn differently and with more I just realized that my air conditioning kicked on a couple minutes ago, so I think I'm gonna wait till it stops before I keep filming, because it was really loud in the last episode when it came on. So I'll see you in a minute. So anyway, as I was saying, the fiber, the yarn used for the shawl is so loosely spun, or it's not spun, it's unspun, that it just breaks apart. And so I had to really adjust my tension and the way I hold the yarn, and I had to learn how to be really, really gentle. And once I got the hang of that, I felt like I was able to really speed up, and I felt a lot more confident in doing this project. But even with doing stockinette, I feel like I have to be really lofty and slow about it. So it's not exactly a quick project, but at least in the garter sections, I feel like I can just knit on it while I'm watching TV, which is really nice. So I think I have another 2 sections to go, and then I'll be done with this. And I can't wait to wear this in the winter. I think it's going to be really cozy. And I'm surprised that it's not itchy. I mean, it's an itchy yarn, but it's just not nearly as itchy as I thought it was going to be. And it's hot out today. Normally when it's hot, I experience the itch factor even more, and maybe it'll get worse as I wear it. But right now I'm feeling like I could definitely wear this against my skin without it really being that much of a problem. So, but I don't have that very sensitive neck. I mean, I experience the itchiness, but it just doesn't really bother me that much, especially with neck wear that I can take on and off. So when it gets hot, I can just take it off and it's no big deal, because that's when itchy wool really bothers me, is when I'm overheated. And that's really it for me as far as projects I've been working on. I have been kind of knitting away at the sleeves on my Norte cardigan, but I think I've only made it to about half of one sleeve, so I think I'm gonna wait until I finish that project before I show it to you again, because there's not really much to show yet. And so that's it for knitting. So a couple weeks ago I had the house to myself. My daughter was with my mother-in-law for the day, and my husband was at work, and so I decided that was the day that I was going to go ahead and experiment with Indigo for the very first time. And for me it was kind of intimidating because it's not straightforward like other natural dyeing is. You don't just stick stuff in a pot and let it simmer for a while. You actually have to do this whole process. And because I'm new to this and because I was a little bit intimidated, I felt like the best way for me to kind of wrap my mind around this was to buy an indigo kit from a company that sells botanical dye material. So I purchased an indigo kit from Meiwa, which comes with a little bottle of indigo, a bottle of lye, and a bottle of thuria dioxide. So along with the kit from Meiwa and the instructions that come along with it, I had also been watching video tutorials on making an indigo dye vat from Kristen Viejar from A Verb for Keeping Warm. She has these video tutorials on indigo and other natural dyeing as well through Creative Bug. And I believe the videos are an accompaniment to her book, The Modern Natural Dyer. I don't own the book yet, but I've been planning on getting it forever. But I felt like the videos were a good enough tutorial for me to kind of get started. So I made a mother in a mason jar, kind of using her method with the tools that I had with all the ingredients I had from Meiwa. And then I also purchased like a 10-gallon like trash bucket. And I wanted to get something that had a lid. That's why I got the trash bucket. And I thought 10 gallons would be perfect for dyeing with wool. And I got to work. And I have to say, my first go at dyeing in the vat was pretty rough because I felt like I was oxidizing the vat too quickly. In order for your indigo to work, you have to have a pH of, I think it's about 11 if I remember correctly. And so that's why you use the lye, and you also have to get as much oxygen out of it as you can, which is why you use the reducing agent. And so every time you dip something into the vat, you oxidize it a little bit. And so I felt like my vat had completely oxidized after just three or four dips the first time around because I was doing it completely wrong. So there was a little bit of a learning curve for me in that, and after I made the adjustments I needed to make and added more, I was able to take it a little bit slower and kind of refine my technique so the vat would last longer before I had to adjust anything. And yeah, I don't know what the best technique for readjusting your vat is. What I was doing was just dissolving some of the reducing agent in water and then adding it. But I think when I dissolved it in the water, I would stir it as well, which adds oxygen, so that was kind of not working for me. And also, I wasn't keeping up with the pH as much as I should have. So, yeah, I definitely had a struggle, and I think I used way too much of all of my ingredients in order to do this whole process, but it's fine. I feel like I could do this again and experiment more with maintaining the balance of the vat. And I feel like I'm ready to kind of learn more about it now. That's how I am. I have to kind of research and then try and see where I need to tweak some things and then do some more research and then try. Like, I can't just learn it all and then do it. I feel like some people can do that, but I can't. So all in all, I dyed about probably 50 or more 100 gram skeins or hanks of fiber, many of which I had been saving from previous dye experiments, specifically for indigo. Maybe I dyed something and it came out beige or blah yellow, or I think there were even a couple of pinks that I over dyed. Just anything that I wasn't super satisfied or I thought this would be really great over dyed in blue, to capture some greens. I would save them in a plastic tote, and I was specifically saving them for overdying in indigo. And so I actually had quite a bit of yarn that I dyed, and I don't have a drying rack, unfortunately, so I had to string up it was like a nylon rope across my deck and hang all the hanks outside in as much shade as I possibly could get, which it actually worked out really well because it was like 90 degrees that week, so it only took a couple of days for all of the yarn to dry up. And I really am very happy with the blues and the greens that I was able to achieve. And the air conditioning just kicked back on, so I will see you in another 10 minutes. So anyway, I was winding up hanks of yarn and labeling it yesterday when I realized that I actually have enough to list it for another shop update. So I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and open shop, let's see, this Saturday, July 28th at 10 PST or PDT. Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of blues from my indigo experiment in this shop update. And one thing that I want to put a disclaimer out there about indigo. If you don't know, indigo does something called crocking, where when you knit with it, your hands will turn a little bit blue. The blue will kind of come out in the water when you wash it. It's kind of the same as when you put on a brand new pair of blue jeans, because blue jeans are also dyed with indigo, though it's not necessarily natural indigo anymore. I guess it's a synthetic indigo that they use nowadays, but it's the same stuff. And this is a completely natural, normal thing that happens with indigo. And I've heard that the crocking effect will reduce over time, but I just want you guys to be aware of it so you can take that into consideration when you are washing it, maybe with other yarns, or you know, if you're knitting with it and your hands turn blue. I usually just take soapy water and it gets the color right off, or like after I dyed with indigo, I took a shower, and because my hands and my feet and everything were completely blue, and the color came out really easily. So yeah, it's just a different kind of natural dye beast, and it has the yarn has been washed and rinsed as much as I dared, but that is the nature of the beast. So I kind of wanted to show you some of the skeins I dyed. So this is some Tarki that was originally dyed with eucalyptus and then over dyed with indigo, and it gives kind of a blue-green color. It's really pretty. I am experimenting with ball bands because I like the way that they look a little bit better than tags. But these are just out of regular parchment paper, so they might be a little bit bendy. I'm not quite sure what I think of them. I like the way they look, but I don't know. We'll see how they hold up. There's going to be a lot of other colors in the shop too. Like this is logwood, same base, it's that Targi base. And it's a really pretty logwood color. Some of my experiments with madder. I posted a photo on Instagram. I actually I had a little bit less liquid in my madder bath this time around, and what ended up happening was the water got hotter than normal and it kind of almost burnt the madder. And so instead of it being more of an orangey toned red, it has more brown undertones, which I think is really pretty. So these are both the same base, but this one was dyed with birch bark first, and this one was undyed. And you can see how overdying this one created a different color. It's almost more of a denim blue. What I would think of as a denim wash. I think it's really pretty. I also think this one's really pretty. I really like this space. It's kind of grown on me. And someone was just asking about this on Instagram. Unfortunately, I can't find it. The only place I was ever able to find the space was through Dharma Trading Company, and they overprice their yarn. So I probably won't purchase from them again. But if I can find the space somewhere else, I would consider stocking it, because it's grown on me that it does that licorice twist thing. So this yarn was originally dyed with myrobalan, and it made a really pretty yellow, and then when I over dyed it with indigo, it turned this green. And I think that's really pretty. There's going to be a lot of this, there's some worsted and some bulky, and they're from Sistari. It's a merino, but it's more of a durable merino. It's not soft, and there's still a little bit of plant matter from the mill in these fibers. And then this Tweedy sock yarn was originally dyed with myrobalan, like this was, but I over dyed it with just maybe 1 or 2 dips in the indigo vat, and so it's a much lighter shade. And I have a few skeins of these. Most of these colors I have at least 4 skeins. And because I wanted to see what just 1 or 2 dips in the indigo vat would look like on bare yarn, not over dyed, but just indigo, this is how that turned out. It's like a sky blue. And then, so this is the one that was only dipped once or twice, and then this one was dipped several times. And it's not over dyed, that's just indigo. So pretty. So these are just pure indigo. Oh, and then this is another one of my favorites. This was originally dyed with onion skins, and when I dipped these skeins in the indigo vat, they looked like they were solid blue, and then I reskeined them, which I don't often do. I'll only do that if the skeins look like they're a mess, and if I don't think that you can put it on your Swift and unwind it, then I will reskein it. And these had gotten pretty messed up, so I reskeined them, and I saw that they actually had quite a bit of variegation throughout, and it's really pretty. And I think it's because I bundled all of this yarn together. It was like 5 different skeins together, so the indigo wasn't able to penetrate through to all of the fiber, so it left it more irregular, and I really like the way that it looks. So that's a technique I can use if I want to recreate this in the future, with that sort of variegated thing going on. Then we got a few more skeins of the madder dyed yarn. We have a couple skeins of avocado dyed yarn. But yeah, other than that, it's mostly going to be indigo. So there might be a few more things that I can add to the shop update before Saturday, because I have some things that are on the drying rack right now and some things that need to come out of the pot and get washed. But it's going to be a slightly smaller shop update than last time. But I think I want to just go ahead and do it because it's been a while. So another thing I wanted to mention regarding natural dyeing is I planted a bunch of seeds for my dye garden. I purchased the seeds through botanicalcolors.com, and one of the flower varieties that I planted was for bachelor's buttons, or they're also called cornflowers, and they are this purpley blue flower, and they're supposed to give off a purple dye. Another person that I spoke to online said that she tried solar dyeing with bachelor's buttons and she didn't get much in the way of color. And another natural dyer suggested that perhaps you need to have more gentle heat to extract the color. So I tried simmering a bunch of cornflowers on really low heat, but when I opened the lid, the water had gotten too hot and it had been like actually kind of boiling. So that bummed me out, because when I strained through to see the color of the liquid, it was sort of a green color. And when I tried to dye something with it, it didn't really change at all. So I decided I was gonna see what happened if I put a handful of cornflowers in a jar of hot, just tap water, to see if I could at least get like a purpley extraction from that, because tap water is gentle heat. And it looks like I'm starting to get some color from that. So maybe I'll stick this in a window and see if I can get more, because there's still lots of color in the actual flower petals. And maybe just dye one skein with this and see what happens. But if anyone has any tips for dyeing with cornflowers or bachelor's buttons, whatever you want to call them, I would love to know, because maybe you gotta adjust the pH or something like that to get really good color, but I don't know. I would think that it wouldn't be impossible to get purples, because it was sold as a dye plant from botanicalcolors.com. So yeah, I've been getting a lot of people asking me to kind of follow up on the bachelor button thing, so I will keep you posted if I'm able to get anything from that color, from that plant. And last but not least, I want to talk about the natural dye knit along. Where has the time gone? It is almost August now, and the natural dye knit along ends September 1st. So you still have a little bit over a month to knit or crochet a project out of naturally dyed yarn and share it with us either through Ravelry or through Instagram. And all the rules are in my Ravelry group about that. Or if you want to share on Instagram, just use the hashtag natural dye KAL for your works in progress and natural dye KALFO for your finished objects. I will be choosing one winner through Instagram and one winner through Ravelry September 1st. And just to remind you, we have received some prize donations for the natural dye knit along from Abundant Earth Fiber. Beautiful yarn. I wish they sold wholesale, because I would so purchase all that and dye with it. Their yarns are some of my absolute favorite. And the fact that they are local-ish to me, yeah. And we also have some undyed rope bowls as prizes from Missy from Minnesota. And over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be choosing and putting together some more stuff to go along with the prizes that have been donated to make it really special. And maybe I'll talk about that more in the next podcast episode. So I think that's it for me today. Again, the shop update will be on July 28th, which is a Saturday, at 10 a.m. PST or PDT. Also, be sure to come and check out the Ravelry group, where people are participating in the natural dye knit along and talking about natural dye stuff. I know off the top of my head that somebody asked me a question about which podcasts I watch and listen to, and I really hesitate to list them out because I will miss somebody, and I watch them all. So I think what I will do instead is start a thread in the group and share the ones that I'm subscribed to, and maybe it can be a place where you guys can add recommendations for new ones that I haven't seen. one thing that always really bothers me is people say that they want to start a podcast, but they're worried that there are too many out there. If you want to start a podcast, start a podcast. There's, not everybody is for everybody. You know what I mean? So, and just don't worry about it. You don't even have to have special equipment. And I know that I do have some special equipment, but I'm telling you, some of my favorite podcasts are just webcam podcasts where people just talk about their stuff. Like really, your knitting and your passion for your work is going to speak for itself. So if you want to start a podcast, start a podcast. That's just a tangent. Yeah. Okay. That's it. I'll see you guys next time.